You guys just saw a video on one of the world's longest cars. Now we're going to do a video on one of the world's shortest cars. This is a week of extremes, guys. Let's get started. So this is another Euro-Asian Bob special. Although it is low miles and it is really clean, it's kind of not surprising because it's a 2018. It's not from the 1970s or something. But it's very interesting. There's a lot of weird quirks to this car. This isn't just your basic smart car. This one's full electric, guys. It's a 2018 Smart ForTwo EQ. It says EQ on the car, which is their electric vehicle. So although we took multiple steps to get around that one and look at it, this one will probably take 3 or 4, just like the other smart car we did. So let's take a look around it, and although it won't take very long, it's really a pretty color. The front looks like our Persian cat bunny, Mrs. Wizard.
It does look a lot like her. She has such a flat face.
Yep. It looks like kind of like a bulldog as well. And this is another one of those cars where the wheels are literally right there at the bumper. So if you get in a front end collision, you're breaking your axles, you're breaking your control arms, which I guess is fine. It's better than breaking your legs or your back or something. The majority of this car's length is just the door. From here back is like literally 1 foot, and forward maybe 2 foot, a foot and a half. I would say 80% or more of the length of this car is the door. That's really strange. There again, rear end collision right into the tire. I'll go ahead and pop the trunk. It's kind of a double hatch. There's that one. And it has this cute little handle. And there's the charging cord. Actually is a Nissan Leaf charging cord, but it works perfectly for this. It's the same system, the same setup. Very small, Mrs. Wizard.
Yeah, not getting many groceries in here.
Maybe 1 or 2 suitcases, and that's about it. But really, it's a city cruiser. It's not meant to go on the long haul. And down this side, it's kind of like a two-tone. It's got a black swoosh right here, but it got a brown bumper, a brown door, and the front of it is brown, a metallic brown. It's really pretty. And that's it. We're at the other side, the front again. It didn't take very many steps at all. This has a really odd way to open the trunk, hood, whatever you call this thing. It's really strange, guys. Let me show you. It's got 2 little finger latches here. You pull them and it rocks forward. And then you just slide the hood forward. And it dangles literally by straps. There's little rubber bumpers so it doesn't scratch the paint. And that's it. Euro-Asian Bob actually just dropped this off today, and he demonstrated this to me, and my jaw dropped. I was like, what the heck just happened? It literally just hangs by straps. You can get to the windshield washer bottle. There is antifreeze for cooling the motor and whatnot. So there is some fluids here to service, even though it's an electric vehicle. There's our brakes. And there's a 12-volt battery for the accessory battery. That is not the battery that powers the main motor. That's just for your lights and your 12-volt system.
That looks awfully tight there, Wizard.
Yeah. There's really not much you're going to be doing in here anyways. Interesting, it has vacuum brakes, but there's no engine to provide vacuum. There must be a vacuum pump somewhere. You can see the steering rack down there, some hoses and some lines. It really is kind of tight. It is a tiny car after all. There's the ABS module right in the center down there. And there's our wiper motor. Some of the stuff is really easy to get to. If you have issues, it wouldn't be too bad. But you're not going to have to maintain a whole lot on these cars anyways. You're going to go months or even a year or two before you have to do anything. That's what I really like about the electric vehicles. So let's close the hood, or reassemble the hood, or whatever. This thing's more annoying than a Dodge Viper hood. I don't suppose you're going to be opening and closing this too much anyhow. That's it. I got these latched and everything lined up. Really, really strange. Let's hop into this little Easter egg and let Mrs. Wizard give you a tour of the interior.
Okay, ladies and gents, here we go. And look at that. 3,369 miles. Not kidding there. Look at that. I don't think I've ever sat in a car with that few of miles before in one of our videos. This definitely was just a go around the block kind of a car. And it shows. This thing is pristine. Let's look at that dash. It is looking fabulous. It's kind of a fabric kind of thing, probably made of recycled plastics a little bit in that fabric. And it's got a neat texture to it, but it's clean, not a mark, nothing. It has a cute little shelf there, I don't know, keep your phone from swinging around maybe, I don't know, a pen, whatnot. It does have some nice piano black around our radio system there. Simple controls, not a lot going on, but this isn't a very complicated car. Love that kind of pull design here, where it moves, hops from spot to spot. You can actually feel it pop, pop, pop. That's really interesting. Again, as we move down, we'll see, doesn't have a lot of many controls there because this is an automatic. Has a couple of cup holders, maybe a spot for a pen again, and a nice simple shifter. As we look at the massive door across the way, you'll see that we've got a lovely couple of color going on there. It's got a hard plastic on the top, kind of got a lighter gray, kind of a swoop, and it's got a fun pattern covering up. Look at that pattern covering up where the speakers are. That's kind of a nice honeycomb design to block behind it and keep them a little bit more protected because they are very close to where your feet will be resting. And again, on the armrest is more of that fabric that we saw on the dash. That makes it just a little bit softer. As we look at the seat, again, it's a nice seat. It's fabric. It's got a little bolster on the side, so if you're drifting around those corners in this little, small micro machine, you can have some fun. That's that's not really the back seat. It's the back shelf. I guess if you had your Chihuahua with you in here, it could hang out back there for you. But nonetheless, it is a very small area, and if you wanted to, it might be a good spot just to hang maybe your handbag or something there, just so you could easy access. The ceiling is a fabric material that is kind of a nice, kind of a taupe color. Again, free of marks, free of any problems, nothing sagging, but with this few of miles, I wouldn't expect many. Up here, it does have a very interesting little pull down. Not really a bar you would put much on, but it is kind of an interesting, I'm not sure full function for there, but that is what is up there. As we end up at that steering wheel, again, we're used to seeing many of our modern cars with some really cool features on our steering wheel, and here is no exception. We've got obviously many controls that will go through with radio and Bluetooth phones and whatnot. Many of the controls that we do through this section will control what we see up there in the dash area. And it took us a few clicks to get to this screen. And I guess, you're probably not as concerned of racking the miles up on here as you are how many miles you still can go on the charge of the battery. So enough of this interior talk. Let's get this little guy up in the air.
Mrs. Wizard, hold on.
Oh.
I want you to take the camera and look at the roof. You mentioned the fabric in here. Let's take a look at the top out here. So you were mentioning in the interior that you saw a bunch of cloth, or a really neat looking cloth. The interesting thing about this car is that the roof is cloth. Now it doesn't come off, it's not a sunroof, it's not a convertible or anything like that, but yet the roof is coated in this material. It's like seat fabric. It's really strange. It's kind of odd. Another thing that's really strange, I want to show you guys how you start this car. It is so weird. Every EV that I've ever sat in always has a push button. You put your foot on the brake, you hit the power button, and you're ready to go. But in order to save cost on this car, they retain the gas engine ignition switch. So you have to pretend like you're going to turn over your gas engine and start your gas engine, even though you're not. it just readies the electric motor to take off. Check this out, guys. You put your key in and you actually crank it like you're going to crank your Honda Civic. And it says ready, the green light came on. And now we can put it in gear and go. That is so weird. It took me a minute to actually start the car. I was like, why am I having to do that? There's no engine. So it's really strange. So a question might be raised, what's the range on this little bitty car? And it's about 60 to 70 miles. Euroasian Bob actually drove it up here about 50 miles away. And when he got here, it still had 17 more miles to go. So about 60 to 70 miles is what you can expect out of this car. And just like Mrs. Wizard just showed you, no, it doesn't have 20,000 miles, or 10, or even 5. Just a little over 3,000 miles on this car. So that's right down the line of the kind of cars that Euroasian Bob finds. Really sweet cars with very low miles. It's amazing. Let me get the Viper off the lift so we can get this thing on the lift and see if we can find something wrong with this car. So far, there's nothing wrong. It's an EV, I expect that. Okay, Mrs. Wizard, you put your hand on that bumper and I'll put my hand on this bumper and we'll see if we can touch hands.
Okay, let's try it. Oh my gosh, I can reach you, dear.
Yep, this inspection's not going to take very long.
No.
Well, let's check it out anyways. Our condenser, there is a radiator in there for cooling the motor. Spotless. And of course it would be, it's only 3,000 miles on it. It does have a lot of aerodynamic belly pans on this thing. It does have standard brakes though. You can see that they're obviously like brand new. Even the paint is shiny on the struts. Sway bar links are going to be tight. Nothing loose, nothing leaking. There's not much to this car, Mrs. Wizard.
They try and keep them simple.
Brakes, struts, everything looks brand new. Imagine that. So I'm going to see how many steps does it take to get to the engine. Most cars takes 4 or 5 steps. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. 2.5 really. There's nothing in between but paneling. There's not much to see. The battery pack is right above Mrs. Wizard's head. But it's not nothing that you can just take apart and look at really. Here's our powertrain. It's a big electric motor, an inverter, everything in this bundle here. And here's our final drive with 2 little CV shafts.
They are very tiny.
Has drum brakes on the back, which are cheap, but they work. Most cars in 2018 don't have drum brakes anymore, but this one does. There's our AC compressor, which like on a Toyota Prius is electric. There is no belt driving it. It uses electricity, a scroll compressor type of a deal. I don't see any leaks or anything, Mrs. Wizard.
I would really hope there's not too many fluids in here.
So I'll go ahead and get an estimate together and...
For what?
I guess you're right. There's nothing to do to this car. Nothing.
But there will be someday when it's got some miles on it.
Maybe.
You'll have brakes and suspension and, you know.
Yeah, it will have wear items. It does have that. Well, I'll get it back on the ground. There's nothing to do to it. So I did have to have this car in neutral so I could get it lined up with the lift, and it was kind of tough. This is the smallest car I can fit on these lifts because the arms are closed, as far closed as they can go. So anything smaller than this, which I can't imagine anything much smaller than this, probably won't fit on this lift. On some cars, electric cars, you don't want to leave it with the key on, it could, I would be afraid it could take off or go do something like that. But this has a traditional shifter, it has PRNDL, so you put it in neutral, it's going to stay in neutral, so it's pretty safe. Guess how much horsepower it has, Mrs. Wizard?
12.
No, it's actually 80.
That's like your motorcycle.
80 horsepower, 120 pound-feet of torque, which doesn't sound like much, but for such a small car, it's actually pretty good. It's pretty zippy. So as much as some of us don't want to hear it, this is going to be the future, and I like it. Will it be the death of the mechanic as we know it, as far as pulling engines and doing all these oil changes? And yeah, that stuff will go by the wayside, but I'm not mad about that. That's progress. That's the way things are going to happen. So whoever buys this car from Euro Asian Bob is basically getting a brand new car. 3,300 and something miles on it. If you're curious about buying this car, there'll be a link in the description below for Euro Asian Auto Inc. That's where you can buy these cars and many other cool cars. But again, there's nothing to fix. No oil changes, no timing chains, no water pumps, nothing. Well, it does have a water pump, but it probably doesn't run constantly all the time, just enough to cool the motor. If you're curious what kind of tools we might use on this car, I don't know. We don't have any tools to use on this car today, or any that we would need to use. Check my Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut and we really appreciate it. Make sure to hit the subscribe button because we have 308 updates coming, guys. There's parts coming today.
Really?
Yes.
My car!
Yep. Well, my car.
No.
Yes. Thanks for watching.